Hey, this is Waylon from Swiftwood Bows, and in this video I want to show you how I add recurves to a Osage self-bow. So before I actually show you the process, I just want to tell you a few things that I do to get ready for adding recurves and some of the materials that I use. So first off, I've got my my bow here, and I like to keep the bow straight lend and tiller it out to about 20 to 22 inches at its target draw weight. So this bow is going to be about 60 pounds. So I've got it pulling at 60 pounds at about 22 inches, and the tiller's looking really nice. Everything's bending evenly. I like to have that confidence that the bow's already bending well before I put in the recurves for a number of reasons. First off, it's going to be hard initially to string the bow with the recurves, and it adds a lot of stress to the bow, and if things aren't lined up and one limb is bending more than the other, or there's a hinge or something like that, the recurves are really going to exaggerate that and possibly damage the bow. So I like going into having recurves knowing that everything's pretty balanced, and usually the tiller looks pretty good when I string it for the first time with the recurves. So that's just what I do. There might be other ways to approach that, but this works for me. So you might notice on this bow I've got some kind of ugly temporary tip overlays. I'm planning on putting some nicer horn tip overlays on this bow, but I don't want to do that before I bend the recurves because I don't want to compromise the glue line on the tip overlays with the heat that I'm going to be using. So I just slap these on here so I can tiller the bow. I'll keep them on while I'm putting in the recurves, and then once I get the recurves looking like I want, then I'll pop these off and put on some nicer looking ones. So this is what I use to bend my recurves. It's called a caul or a jig. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I mean, this is just an old 2x12, and I made an even contour here. I drew it on there, and then I cut this out. There's no magic formula for what makes a good radius for a recurve. There's no reason to go really any sharper than this. I mean, this gives you just about a 90-degree bend if you stick it all the way down in there. And I can vary it, I can put the tip of the bow at different spots. It can go all the way down, or it can start here if I want a smaller, lighter recurve. I also have, over on this side, if you can see it, a more gentle recurve, and I've got this little metal bar here as a catch for the tip of the bow. So it's kind of whatever you want within reason. It just needs to be a smooth, even radius. So I've just got this clamped onto my deck here. Got it close to the house where I'm going to be boiling the tip. So there's different methods for heating up the bow to bend. The main two are steaming and dry heat with a heat gun. Some guys swear by dry heat, and I've done it before, and I've had pretty good success, but I've had some issues with it too. I think it's a little bit more finicky, especially when you're trying to get a tight bend on there. I like to use dry heat for correcting alignment or taking twist out, things like that. But when it comes to doing a sharp recurve, I really like to use wet heat. For a while I put it over a pot of boiling water and use the steam to heat it up, and that works great. A lot of guys do that. But recently I've switched over to using the boiling method, and I'll show you what I mean in a minute. So instead of putting the bow over a pot of water and letting the steam heat it up, I actually stick the wood down into boiling water and I have had really great results with it. I haven't had any mishaps. The wood just bends down like rubber, and so that's what I do, and it works great. So I'll show you the boiling method here. So I'll move the camera inside. I've got a pot of water going. I'll show you what I do. All right, so I've just got a big tea kettle here full of water that I brought to a boil. And it's important to have everything set up before you get to this point, because you don't want to be ready to take the bow out and put it on the form and not have your stuff put together, because the bow has to go pretty much straight from the boiling water to bending on the form. So I make sure I've got all that set, and then I'm literally just going to stick the bow down into the water like that, as far as it'll go, and then I just take a cloth, wrap it around here just to kind of keep the heat trapped in, and then I'm just going to set the kitchen timer for 15 minutes. 15 or 20 minutes is all it takes. Honestly, it might not even take that much, but that seems like a good solid number to me, and it's worked really well for me. Some guys talk about steaming a bow for like an hour. I just don't think it's necessary. I feel like the wood gets to a hot temperature at a certain point, and then it just stays hot all that time, and I don't know that it's doing any extra good. I mean, you definitely want it hot enough, but I think those excessive times are overly cautious in my opinion, especially when you've already got the wood down to these dimensions. So I'm just going to let it sit here in the boiling water for 15 minutes, and when it's done, I'll show you how to put it on the form. Okay, I'm ready to do the bending. My 15 minutes is up. I actually brought it out in the pot to keep it hot. So now I take this rag off here. Make sure you got it in there the right way, so it's gonna bend the way you want it to. I put this piece of leather here to protect, and then just gonna smoothly and steadily bend the wood down. Make sure that everything's lined up the way you want it to be, and it just bends right down. And then you're supposed to have your clamp nearby so you can clamp it down, which mine's right over there, of course. Did that on purpose. Just wanted to show you what not to do. So I'm just going to sit and hold this for a minute, but normally I just stick a clamp on here. I don't want to let it go right now, because the window that you have to bend the wood is pretty short, and a few times, for whatever reason, I needed to kind of abort and not follow through on bending the wood, and then I just stick it back in the boiling water, get it boiling again for a few minutes, fix whatever I need to fix, and then do it all again the right way. You don't want to bend it a little bit, have it unbend, try to rebend it. You're going to end up breaking your wood. And it really doesn't have to sit here for a super long time. It just needs to sit here till the wood is cool, and it'll stay in its shape. I mean, some people like to stay on the safe side and leave it overnight. You're certainly not hurting anything by doing that. But I think once the wood is cool, it's going to stay in position. So this is the method that I use for Osage Orange and Pacific Yew. They both respond to bending really well. Different types of wood will tolerate recurves differently, and so this isn't a blanket technique for any type of bow wood. There's you try to do this with red oak, you might end up you know, breaking it. But it definitely works well for osage and yew, and probably some of the other more forgiving wood types. With osage, I find that this is really all I need to do. That's going to stay just like it is, and not pull out at all. Yew has a tendency of letting go of some of its reflex, and so what I've found is that after this is cool and set, coming back with a heat gun and heating up the belly here, nice and hot, and it kind of helps to set the recurve. So that might be something that you want to consider if you want to be on the safe side. All right, now I got the clamp on there, so you can see what that looks like. So I'm just going to let this sit, you know, maybe for half hour or so, maybe an hour, just to be safe. Probably won't even need that long, but just till it's totally cool to the touch. And then I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to repeat the exact same process for the other tip. And when I'm done, I'll check back in with you and show you what it looks like. All right, going to bend my second tip in here. Now I want to take a look at everything and make sure that the tips are going to be aligned with each other, so one's not going one way and one's not going the other way. Got my clamp this time. Pretty good. All right, we'll leave it like that for a bit and we'll check it out when it's all done. All right, I'm gonna pop it off the form here. Take a look at the final product. So I always like to check down the length here. So what I'm noticing right now is that the one down on the bottom is angled off a little bit to the side. And that happens sometimes. I try to be as mindful as I can when I'm putting it down on the form to make sure it's all lined up, but it doesn't always come out perfect. So what I'll have to do is I'll use a heat gun and kind of put that back in the form and mess around with it a little bit just to get it to lay in the direction that I want it to. It's pretty close. It's not that bad. I mean, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little bit off. That's okay. It happens sometimes. It's easy to fix. But otherwise, I'd say this was pretty successful. So I'm going to let this bow sit for a day before I do anything with it. There's what I believe to be a myth out there about steaming and boiling. People say that it introduces a lot of moisture and you need to let that moisture come out of the bow, but I think it drives moisture out of the bow and makes it a little bit drier than you want it to be. So you want it to regain some of that moisture. All that heat that gets put in there, even though it's in the water, it's still forcing the moisture out of the inner part, and the water that gets on it from the water, or the moisture that gets on it from the water is just superficial and then dries off. So anyway, I would leave it for about a day or so, just to be safe. And there you go. That's how you put recurves on the self-bow. Hope that was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions. There's a million ways to do this. You know, if you have your own ideas, feel free to post them in the comments. And just know that there's more than one way to skin a cat, but this is how I do it, and it works pretty consistently. So thanks and take care.